This episode is brought to you by Let's Productions. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. See you there.
You know, there's sort of a nexus of disinformation and automatic kook factor that gets associated with anything UFO and ET. And that's been done since the 1950s by the CIA, and it's been very effective. So a lot of people don't want to lose their respectability by touching the UFO issue. That's just true. I mean, it's a psychological warfare is the term used in the CIA document I have from 1953.
I'd much rather be a live coward than a dead hero. And with the area of uncertainty that we have here, how do I know what maybe there's a current, an electrical charge which is being radiated by one of these vehicles which would electrocute you if you got within a certain area of it. There was no sound whatsoever. I could not hear a bit of sound.
We are being observed by some type of device which is ahead of us, far ahead of us, and is probably controlled by a highly advanced superior civilization.
Pilots in two different planes, one a Learjet, the other an American Airlines jet, reported seeing a mysterious object over Arizona last month, we have learned. The exchange with air traffic control sounded like something out of the Twilight Zone.
Number 71 Papa Golf, go ahead, please.
And there was anybody above us that passed us like 30 seconds ago?
Number 71 Papa Golf, negative.
Okay. Something did. A UFO. Yeah. It's murdered 1095. Yeah, something just passed over us. Like don't know what it was, but it's at least 3,000 feet above us. So yeah, it passed right over the top of us.
No one has figured out what it was. Other pilots did say they saw nothing.
Strand Podcast.
Coastal Bend and Corpus Christi, Texas. And you're listening to the Alien Strand podcast with Donald Ledesma. Buying or selling, visit me at kellygreenrealtor.com or visit me on my Facebook page, Kelly Green Realtor. See you there.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Alien Strand podcast. I'm your host, Donald Ledesma, and welcome to today's show. Yeah, gonna be an interesting one today, and I just would like to welcome everybody back to the show. It's been a couple of weeks, but we're getting at it again, and I really appreciate each and every one of you for listening to this show. You can catch us on Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and alienstrand.com. Check us out there. Usually on Facebook, you can, see a lot of Facebook posts that I post every day, at least 8 to 10 times a day. I even put a daily funny on there for you guys. It's just something for you guys to look at, watch the videos, and then you make a judgment for yourself on what you think that it could be, right? So that's why I post so many things out there. Some of it may look CGI, some of it may be CGI, right? But it's up to you to decide. And if we can figure out it is, leave a comment there with a link, and the answer of where you found the hoax or whatever it is, and then that way we can go ahead and spread the information to everybody, right? So that way, not too much false information flies out there. And I think we've been getting, rid of a lot of stuff that's been going out and round circles. People are actually starting to pick that up. And if you're new to ufology, well, welcome, guys. I mean, it's a whole universe out there, for us to see what's going on there, the things of the unknown, the UFOs and flying saucers and the Bigfoot and these crafts that are all over the place that we're starting to see now. These crafts are making their way more and more and more, right? To where you can actually catch them on video. Before it was, old photography, those cameras, they had a very fast speed, so you can actually catch a photograph of one of these discs, right? Now we can actually, do a lot of adjustments on our cameras. If you have a really nice professional camera, you can do some adjustments to it where you can actually catch a lot of these anomalies in the sky. And that's what we're trying to do, right? Is trying to catch these things, trying to figure out exactly what it is, right? So today's episode, I decided to talk about the origins of a UFO, right? And because there has a lot of history behind it, and I always tell a lot of stories and things that we just don't understand sometimes, right? So that's why I dig out a lot of these older stories. And I always say this because they're very well documented, right? And, it's just, it always intrigues me of, okay, how far back do you think that a lot of these reports were coming back? Well, I had a few podcasts where I think I got it back as far as the 1800s, right? And this was a few podcasts back. People were disappearing in the woods, because of it. That's why I did The Missing, which is a podcast before this one, right? Listen to that one. That's a really good podcast. If you really want to know, what happens to people, I have really good stories on there as well. But a lot of these stories, they have history behind them. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this today. And I think it's very important that we get like a little history lesson and what they wrote in the history books, right? Of what these things could have possibly been or how they were interpreted, because the language and the way people were speaking back in BCE or BC or even in AD, it wasn't as fluent as we are speaking now, or in a different dialect, sort of a dialogue that we have now, where we get our point across, right? So they did theirs in images and hieroglyphs, petroglyphs. They tried to get the information out in those kind of ways, right? So, when we look at ancient Egypt and all these, those pyramids in Mexico, or the Aztecs were, there's even pyramids in India. A lot of people don't talk about India too much, but they're out there too. They're in Africa, they're in China, they're everywhere. Now they're starting to find them in Antarctica, correct? People are starting to see these four-sided mountains out there, right? Almost look triangular shape. So kind of gets you wondering about those things. How long ago was civilization living, or what did they leave behind for us to understand exactly what was happening or what they were seeing? And that's where I'm digging into the origins of a UFO, or extraterrestrial, mind you. And we seem to get a lot of historical information, from Ancient Aliens. That's a great show on the History Channel. If you guys watch that, please watch it. Really good show. And I believe they got, I don't know how many seasons already, Unacknowledged, with Dr. Greer. Check that out. I've been watching a lot of these documentaries that are coming out, even past documentaries. They have a lot of information on ufology, right? So if you're just digging into it, Well, this might be the perfect show for you today, so I can give you some in-depth information of what a lot of these things could have been and what they might have not been, right? And these stories have a backline behind them where somebody was actually interpreting what they were seeing, somebody was writing it. Well, even in ancient Rome, they were doing that as well. Somebody was scribing this as they were speaking. Same thing with the Egyptians, right? You know, same thing back in the day. So this first story takes place in Egypt. It was the reign of a pharaoh, of Thutmose III. He was Egyptian. According to the papers of the director of the Vatican Egyptian Museum, in the year 22 of the third month of the winter, 6th hour, and the 6th day, the scribes of the House of Life found there was a war of a circle of fire coming from the sky. It had no head. The breath of its mouth had a foul odor. Its body was one rod, was 16.5 feet or 5 meters long, and one rod wide. It had no voice. On the hearing of the event, the Pharaoh meditated on it. But after some days, these things became numerous in the sky than ever. They shone more in the sky than the brightest sun. The army of the pharaohs looked on with him in their midst. It was after supper. Thereupon, the circle of fire ascended higher in the sky, upward towards the south. So this is coming from an Egyptian scribe in the year 22, third month of the winter of 6th hour and 6th day. This is how they explain the season and the day and time. Foul odor was that sulfur that people always smell when they get close to UFO or in close proximity to one. It said it had no voice, which was silent. Most crafts that we see up in the sky, you cannot hear a thing. And then it says things became numerous, more and more. So there was a bunch of them. What we're seeing today, right? Usually when we see a craft up in the sky, usually it's going to have a shape, right? And then you're going to see a bunch of small craft around it or circling or dispersing from it. Was this the first sighting ever recorded in the history books? You know, and it even says that the UFOs ascended to the south, so they rose up and they took off. So it was not a meteor. Meteors don't ascend, they don't go up and take off. And I believe that this is possibly a real-life event of a possible UFO that Pharaoh and his army saw that evening. It's a possibility, strong possibility. Here's another story. Off of the Jaks River in India, in Tyre, in Onsedia, the date was 329 BCE and 322 BCE. In 329 BCE, Alexander and his army were crossing the river of Euphrates into India. They looked up. They said they saw two shiny shields of silver dived from the sky onto the military columns, causing all to disperse. It was in 329 BCE. In 322 BCE, Alexander was in Tyre. It's a city which is modern Lebanon today. Soldiers watched on both sides in amazement as a large flying shield moved in a triangular shape and formation. It had 4 smaller shields circled over the embedded city. The largest UFO shot a beam of light at the city wall in front of the army. It made a hole right through it. More beams were fired, shattered all the towers and the other defenses. Alexander took advantage of that situation and took the city. Now, was this story like folklore, possibly? Made up stories? Or was this the truth? I mean, why silver shields? I know they used shields back in those days. And they were in the sky. That's what we see today. Most UFOs that we see today, and people have described them as being a soft silver metallic color. Not super shiny, but like a medium shiny color on the disc, where it does reflect some sort of light. Why the triangular formation? That's what we still see today on a lot of these videos. You always see 3 or 4 of them, or 3 of them actually, go into a triangular formation. Then they disperse. And then why 4 other smaller craft? Seems a little bit closer to the truth in a sense. Would it have been a folklore for Alexander because he took that city? They used that in a sense to explain that he used something from the sky to take that city? Or did this really happen? I mean, from the story before, happened in the year 22 to 329. And they're saying the same thing, possibly. I mean, what do you think? There's a story in Europe in the 12th century. Ralph Niger recounts on March 9th, 1170, on St. Oswyth in Essex, southeast of England, a large dragon was seen, he says, borne up from the earth, through the air. The air was kindled into fire by its motion, and it burned a house, reducing it to ashes. And this is what I talked about, their dialect, how they spoke back then, how they had to explain things, and the way they heard stories. Right? So when they saw something of the unknown, how are they going to explain it? I'm sure they had stories of dragons and all kinds of stuff, but how was he going to explain it? Well, he might have explained it in that sense. And he documented that on March 9th, 1170. In Gravesend, Kent, England, in 1211. During a Sunday Mass, the congregation saw an anchor descend from and catch a tombstone. The churchgoers went outside to see a strange ship in the sky. When they looked up, they noticed it had people on board. Then they said, one person leaped over the vessel, over the side, but he did not fall, as if swimming in water. He made his way down towards the anchor. So he was floating down sky. The people on the ground, check. They tried to capture him. But they had no luck. Quickly turned and went up into the ship. But the ship quickly sped up and went out of their sight. Was this more folklore? And are they stories of the unknown? I mean, why run out to look up at the sky and see a ship? It said the man was floating as if swimming. Was this an extraterrestrial? People try to capture him. Why? Possibly because they've never seen a human or a human figure or a creature like that. And why were they not afraid? These are a lot of these stories that are unexplainable, but the way they write it out and the way their dialogue is, it leads us to try to figure it out ourselves, right? On what these things could have been. If it was a true UFO, or was it just folklore? Just these three stories in the past have dates and times written in the history books. So they're documented in a sense, right? It's just up to us to figure out what happened, if it was real or not. So I'm going to give you another story, or probably keep you on the edge. It's called the Sutton Place Siege. This is a close encounters of the third kind. Which presents a creature such as a human or a robot or a UFO pilot. That's what close encounters of the third kind means. So there was a little town of Kell near Hopkinsville in Kentucky, USA. This happened between April 21st through April 22nd, 1955. It happened on the Sutton farm. The Sutton family were 8 adults and 3 children in the whole household. So at 7 p.m. that evening, Billy Ray went outside to get a drink from the water well, a pump. When he looked, he saw an enormous ball of light. Real bright, he says, with an exhaust of all colors of a rainbow. He said it was in a dried gully close to the farm. So this object was sitting on the ground. He ran inside to tell everyone, but nobody went outside to take a look. An hour later, the dog was barking and started going crazy at the door. At that point, Elmer and Billy Ray, suspecting intruders, grabbed their guns and went to the kitchen door. Remember, this is 1955. When they looked, slowly approaching was a small, shiny man with hands over his head. At that point, they opened fire on him. They struck it many times. They said it somersaulted over and over as they were hitting it with the bullets. Said the impact of the bullets just kept on spinning him backwards. And it fled away after it was shot. Several more creatures approached the house from different areas. So this house was starting to get surrounded by these little extraterrestrials that were coming off of that ship. They heard one on the kitchen roof. Both of them opened fire at it as it fell. They said when it hit the ground, it floated several feet away, possibly about 40 feet. And it stood on the gate, on the fence. So these bullets were not affecting these creatures at all. At that point, both of them fired at it again. It fell, and then it said it went into the weeds. They started firing on all these little shiny men that were starting to surround their home. Imagine how scared these people were with the children in the house. They said that when they hit these extraterrestrials, when they fell, they would get up and they would run on all fours. Almost like a dog or a cat, right? They said they were 3 feet tall when standing. They had round, egg-shaped heads, yellow eyes that were spaced wide apart. Said they had long arms that ended up in claw-like hands. They were slim-bodied, silver in color. And they said a light seemed to be inside of them. Like glowing light they could see inside of the body. The light would intensify when they were being shot or being yelled at. At that point, the family went inside, locked the doors, totally barricading themselves inside the house. They said every once in a while they would see an alien or little man pop their heads through the windows. From time to time. Soon after, the whole family ran into the vehicles that they had there and drove into town to get help from the police. That was in Hopkinsville. This town was 7 miles away from their home. The police came back to the farm, searched the area, and found nothing. So the family thought everything was okay. By then it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and they went to bed. At that point, the aliens returned for more. So there was gunfire between 2 o'clock in the morning all the way to 5 o'clock in the morning. It was 3 hours that these people were defending themselves from these extraterrestrials or whatever they were that was trying to get a hold of them. They said that the aliens withdrew themselves at 5 a.m. and never returned. And this family has stuck to their story ever since. The Suttons. Even the neighbors lived a quarter mile down, saw the lights in the sky, heard all the commotion. So there was a sense of a witness actually hearing the event. You know, nobody could ever explain exactly what happened to the Suttons that day or that night, from the 21st to the 22nd, from 7 p.m. all the way to 5 o'clock in the morning. They were terrified. Imagine what they had to go through every night after that, thinking this UFO or these extraterrestrials may come back. Sure that it gave a psychological effect to them. a post-traumatic stress, especially to the kids, right? You know, a lot of these things that happen to people every day, and there are thousands of stories like this. Stories that you haven't heard. Stories that are not super famous, but they're there. They're documented. The information is out there for you to know that these things have been coming around here for a long, long time. Why do they come here? I've told stories of a lot of these extraterrestrials. I say it's a 50-50. Some are nice, some are not. Half of them care about the planet, the other half only want to take you. They don't care about the planet. There's a bunch of stories out there of what their agenda is. You know, I'm going to have a guest coming out here pretty soon. I believe in the beginning of March. You know, she's going to tell her story of an abduction that happened to her. Her name is Lisa O'Hara. She wrote a book called Abducted and Furious. How she fought back. She's sending me the book. I'm going to read it. Then we're going to have a really nice conversation in March. So stay tuned for that. You know, it's always good to hear these stories of what happens to people, so that way you know exactly what they went through. You don't have to see it in a movie. You know, you don't have to imagine it so much. They can tell you exactly what happened to them. Just like the Sutton family, what they went through, what they saw. Just like Elena Danang, when I had her on my show. She was abducted as well as a child. Now has contact still with the extraterrestrials that possibly abducted her. I believe she channels them in a sense. Like I said, I thought it was important to bring out these stories to you guys, and so that way you'll know that a lot of these UFO stories just didn't pop out in the 50s and 40s or whatever, or, you know, even when the Roswell incident, 47. You know, this happens. Possibly, right? In the year 22. In 329 BCE. These stories are out there. That's why I always tell you guys, watch the History Channel and watch the Ancient Aliens, because that's what they talk about. Things that have happened in the past, things that they put together, things that what possibly could have been what they've been seeing. You know, maybe half of them could be true. At least more than half. My theory, it's always been, the pyramids have always been there. Just somebody moved in. You know, these structures have been standing for a long, long time. Now they're finding things from way before that time. Structures that are buried. which means we have a lot of history still that needs to be discovered. We'll know how people lived, what they saw, and how they explain things, and the possibilities of extraterrestrial life that was visiting us way before our time. Would they lended a helping hand? Yeah, I think so. But that's what we have to think. Just keep on studying, keep on listening to podcasts, not just this one. Listen to a lot more podcasts, especially of the unknown, right? Because you're going to get a lot more information out there on what's going on. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. A little history lesson, but in a sense, you got a story to back it up, right? So you got a 2-for-1 today. And I really enjoyed telling this stories today. So get ready for my guest that's going to be in March. Her name's Lisa O'Hara. She's an author, Abducted and Furious, and she was also abducted as well by extraterrestrials. And she fought back, so she wrote a book about it. Her and I are going to have a nice conversation. I hope you guys tune into that in March. Probably be in the very beginning week of March. But I'll be throwing it out on Facebook. Go check out our videos on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We're all over. 25 platforms. And don't forget to download the Alien Strand app there on your Google Play. Download that. It's free. It's a nice player for you, okay? So if you have a chance, go check those out. Go check out our past podcasts. I really appreciate you guys, listening to the show. If you guys want to be on the show, you can call me at 361-245-8000. Again, that's 361-245-8000. Or go to the Facebook page. You'll see a call now button. Click it. It'll call me directly. You want to have a conversation about extraterrestrials and then you want to get booked on the show, we'll do that. Or you just want to talk about it, I'll be glad to talk to you about extraterrestrials. But until then, you guys have yourselves a good day. Have yourselves a good evening. And have yourselves a good night.
What's up, everyone? This is Arizona Gallegos, and you're listening to Alien Strand Podcast with Donald Ledesma. Check out my Facebook page at Arizona Secret Backyard. Hit me a like, share, and follow. I'll see you there.
There's sort of a nexus of disinformation and automatic kook factor that gets associated with anything UFO and ET. And that's been done since the 1950s by the CIA, and it's been very effective. So a lot of people don't want to lose their respectability by touching the UFO issue. That's just true. I mean, it's a psychological warfare is the term used in the CIA document I have from 1953.